Keilim. Keilim Yud Aleph Zayin.
Sorry, just one more second, one second. Joan, a horn that is curved is tame, but a straight horn is tahor. If a mouthpiece was of metal, it is tame. Regarding its bell, Ratafim was a tame, but the sages rule a tahor. And when they are joined together, everything is tame. Similarly, the branches of a candelabra are tahor, but the barrack and the base of the candelabra are tame. And when they are joined together, everything is tame. A helmet is tame, but cheek guards are tahor. If the cheek guards have a receptacle for water, they are tame. All implements of war are tame, and the kidon, a spearhead, greaves, and a coat of mail are tame. A woman's jewelry is tame, but a city of gold, chokers, earrings. That's wrong. I skipped a page. Right? Did I? No.
No, you good?
Sorry. Gold, chokers, earrings, and finger rings. A finger ring, whether it's signet or does not have a signet, or nose rings. Regarding a choker whose beads are of metal and strung on a linen or wooden thread, even if it is threaded snapped, the beads are tame, since each one by itself is a utensil. Regarding a metal shred that was strung with beads or precious stones, pearls, or glass, if the beads broken, the thread alone remains intact, the thread is tame. The remnant of a choker is the width of a neck the size of a young girl, and Reb Eliezer says even if one bead remains, it is tame, since people hang it around their neck. Test. Regarding an earring that is shaped like a pot or at its lower end and like a lentil at its top, that became a part, the section and resembling a pot is tame because it is utensil with a receptacle, and the lentil-shaped section is by tame by itself. However, the hook is tahor. An earring that was made like a cluster of grapes, it became part, is tahor. Okay.
Okay. All right, Perikid base. All right. We're going to get deep into the weeds today about about different subtleties of different types of Keilim. Okay, so hang on for the ride. Tabas Adam. So a ring of a person is Tameh because it's something that a person wears. But Tabas Behema V'Keilim Ushar Kol Tabas Tahoros. Other rings that are used for decorating an animal or other
it says utensils,
right? So that is tahor. Okay, why? The reason ornamental rings for animals and utensils are not susceptible to tumah is that the term from which it is derived, that jewelry and ornaments are susceptible to tumah, even though they're not functional, refers only to ornaments for humans, not those made for animals or utensils.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically, if it had, remember, it's also something, it doesn't have a receptacle. So once
Right.
it does not have a receptacle, it moves into the category of things that have to be useful to a person. Okay, and thereafter, oh, hold on, Elchanan, you don't play with matches, please. We're not playing with matches. Thank you. Okay, just that was kind of important.
You're so strict. You're so strict. I don't understand.
Okay. Sharkol Tabaos Tahoros, right? So Koras Achitzim. Okay, Koras Achitzim. So what they say is a beam for arrows. And now this is a difficult one, because a beam, if you're talking about a wooden beam, well, of course it's tahor, because a wooden beam is never tameh. It's just like a flat piece of wood. So what are we talking about over here? Mistama, we're talking about something metal. So we're talking about like a metal target. Now, I'm not an expert in what ancient battle systems were like and how they used to train, but I cannot imagine a situation in which you would choose to make fashion a target out of metal rather than taking the nearest piece of available wood.
Right.
Okay, but let's imagine that you have a metal sheet that's been set up to be used as a target. Well, that would be tahor, because it's just a flat piece of metal. There's no receptacle, and it's a cleave, and it's something that's used for arrows. But more likely, in my opinion, is the other explanation that's given over here in the second column by Rav and Rash, is that the beam for arrows is talking about a quiver. So he's got a metal thing that he hangs over his back that he keeps his arrows in. Okay, and here the quiver is not considered a utensil that serves a different utensil, because if it had been a utensil for other utensils, then it would be called tahor, and we'll see that with other things, with covers and whatever. But here we've got something that actually is serving the person. It's serving the person as a place for him to carry his arrows, and that's the subtle shift in mindset that makes it into something that's tameh.
So the beam is the arrow with the quiver?
Yes, the beam. So what they're calling the kora over here is actually a quiver for arrows. That's the other possibility. It's not the common term, and the kora usually does mean a beam. But it's difficult to understand what that's. Oh, sorry, and this is tameh. If it's a, I said it the wrong way. That if it's a metal target, it's tameh, even though it's flat. It's a utensil that serves a person directly, since it helps him to perfect his marksmanship. So if you're looking at it as a target. Okay, Vishal Asirim. What happens if you've got a kora, a beam for captives, which is basically stocks?
Right.
Okay. So that is something that a beam that gets attached to the prisoner's legs. That is tahor. It's not called a garment. Okay. It's a passive function, which is just meant to hold the prisoner in place. But a collar, which is a collar.
Right. Okay.
That is tameh, as the metal band placed around the neck of a prisoner to restrain him. So that is tameh, because even though it seems that it serves the same purpose as the beams, the fact that it's worn by the prisoner wherever he goes elevates it to the status of a kli tashmish. Okay, shalshelis.
Whenever I see beam, I keep thinking of Star Wars.
Huh?
You know, thinking of Star Wars with the beam. The beam, the light.
Lightsaber.
I can't remember what it's called. None of my kids know what it's called.
Gosh, am I going to have to make a Star Wars theme for today's thumbnail? That'd be a bit too weird. Okay, shalshelis sheyesh ba beis ne'ilah. So a chain that has a locking device. All right, so chains is going to be a subject all of its own, because the chain doesn't actually have a receptacle, so it's going to depend a lot on the usage of it. So if it's got a locking device, then it's tameh. That's okay. It's a useful kli. Asuya lekvisa tahora, but one that's just made for tying is tahor. Now let's just dive into that, because you've got to be careful about saying what kind of chain is tahor. Okay, this refers to a type of chain that was tied around smaller animals such as monkeys and puppies, primarily for adornment. Since it's intended as an adornment and not as a functional utensil, it's not susceptible to tumah, even if it contains a locking device, says Tiferes Yisrael. Okay. For as stated above, objects made primarily as ornaments for animals are not susceptible to tumah.
That's interesting, because mine says here, a Mishna refers to a metal chain to which the lock was attached to prevent a horse from being stolen. I didn't see anything about monkeys or anything like that. I didn't see.
Which part of the page are you looking?
A chain that has a locking device is tameh.
Okay, so the previous page. Right. Yeah. Right. So that's that has got a useful, that's a chain without a locking device, however, lacks significance and is therefore not considered a utensil. Okay. I mean, you can see the amount of commentaries that we have on this Mishnah just gives you a clue as to how much lomdus there is on these chains. Like, when is it considered for human use and when is it considered for the animal's use? If it's meant to be holding the horse down, then it's not for the horse's benefit; it's for the person's benefit. Right. But if it's like just a decorative thing, then it's not a direct benefit. It's just something to make the animal look pretty. Anyway, shalsheles shel sitonos, the chain of merchants is tameh. The shel baalei batim tahora, but the one of householders is tahor. So, okay, what is the chain of merchants? So this is a chain attached to measuring containers used by grain merchants to measure out specific amounts. And the chain was attached to the container at one end and could be attached to a door or post at the other end and a lock placed on to prevent the container from being stolen. Okay, although the chain itself has no locking device, it's susceptible to tumah. Since it is designed to be attached to the container at all times, it's viewed as an integral part of the container and is therefore susceptible to tumah, just as the container itself is. Okay, as we'll see in the next Mishnah, that anything attached to something that is susceptible to tumah is itself susceptible, even when it is not attached to the container. Okay, as opposed to the chain of householders, the chain that's been it's not susceptible to tumah. This is the commentary. The difference between the chain of householders and that of merchants is that the former is generally not intended to serve any function, but rather to be an adornment for the container. And the adornments of utensils are not susceptible to tumah unless they're attached to the container, as our Mishnah ruled earlier. Okay. So, Amar Rabbi Yossi Emasai. So let's qualify this, says Rabbi Yossi. When is this? Bisman shu mafteach echad. That's only when it's one link. Aval im hayushnayim or shekasha chilazon v'roshat mea. Says it's only tahor when it's only got one link. But if it's got two links, or if there's a chilazon on the end, it's tameh. Okay, what is Rabbi Yossi talking about over here? What's one link? What use is a chain with only one link? Okay.
We say the chilazon was the animal that they get for the Keilim?
No, we're talking now about the chain of householders.
No, but it says here it consists but it consists of two links or a chilazon. It must be spelled differently, I guess. Then.
Right. So let's take a look at the commentaries over here. So in the second column, Rabbi Yossi maintains that even the chain of householders can be susceptible to tumah. He agrees, however, that when it's only got one link, it's not susceptible to tumah. People do not make chains consisting of only one link, for it has almost no utility, so such a chain cannot be considered a utensil. But if it consists of two links, then, or if there's a chilazon, right, a metal piece representing the snail, then it's tameh, because it's significant enough to be a utensil. Halacha does not follow Rabbi Yossi. Rather, a householder's chain is not susceptible to tumah no matter how many links it contains and regardless of whether a chilazon is on it. Okay. Mishnah base. Okay, I'm talking about the balance scale. Okay, so here this is a great diagram from on the left-hand page, showing how the combers would have a balance, would weigh out their wool. So you see there's a pivot hook on the top left of the thing right. and it's got these hooks, and that little baggy looking thing over there, that's the raw material that they're measuring. So you the hooks into it and you weigh it, and you've got the weight that you slide down the scale to see how heavy it is. Okay, so that beam over there is made of wood, and as such, without a receptacle, it should be tahor, except that its primary function over here is with these hooks. The hooks the hooks over here are metal, and they're used for measuring the material that it's weighing. So it makes the whole thing, and it's all one apparatus. So therefore, the entire thing becomes tameh. Okay, the entire thing is susceptible to tumah. Okay, mipnei onkelayos, because of its hooks. Shel ba'alei batim, however, a householder's scale is a different thing. Okay, im yesh bo onkelayos tameh. If it is fitted with these hooks, then it's the same. But otherwise, it is considered tahor. Okay, why the householders? So if you look at the commentary 534, in contrast to combers, householders often did not use metal hooks to hang the object being weighed from their balance. Rather, they would just tie a rope around the object and attach the rope to the balance. Therefore, the tumah susceptibility of the wooden beams of their scales depends on the composition of the scale, as the Mishnah will now explain. Okay. Keilim shel katafin. Oh, so if it has, is there anything else that's... No, that's the important thing is that the professional version has got the hooks attached all the time, and being that they're metal, that makes the entire apparatus considered a metal kli. Whereas the householder's thing is mostly wood, and can sometimes be used with rope. Okay, so therefore that's why it's not as susceptible. Unkelin shel katapin. Okay, so a porter. You got the picture of the porter with a pole over his shoulder and one part of the load on the front and one part on the back. So the hooks on the end of his poles, because he's got hooks to hold whatever weight is over there. These are tahor. Okay. Now, why are they tahor? Which is the most important thing? It's because the hooks are not used as utensils in their own right, but just as components of the wooden pole to which they're attached. So they acquire the same status as the pole and are governed by the rules of Kli 8, which needs a receptacle. Okay. The shell rochlin tamea, but the peddlers are typically people who are selling perfumes and things. So what's different between them? Why are these ones susceptible to tumah? Okay. On 536. In contrast to the hooks of a porter's pole, the hooks of a peddler's pole are susceptible to tumah. The reason is that they have receptacles, as mentioned above. We mentioned they would have a little receptacle to put the merchandise in. So rather than hanging from the poles, it was contained in the receptacles. So that gives the hooks significance so that they are considered the main component of the utensil. And therefore, rather than the pole defining the status, it's the hooks that are defining them. So therefore, it's considered a metal kli and they're susceptible to tumah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer shel rochlim shelafanav tamei v'shel acharav tahora. He says only the front one. Only the front one is where they carried their main stuff. The back one is just a counterweight, which is not the actual merchandise. And perhaps his reasoning is that when a guy's walking around with valuable stuff, what's behind him is vulnerable to being pickpocketed. So he doesn't keep the valuable stuff there. He just keeps a counterweight, so he can carry all the valuable stuff in front of him. Okay, while we're talking about hooks, let's look at the hooks of a bed frame. So the dargesh, that's that little picture we've got there. Onkeli dargesh tameh. So the hooks that are on the bed frame are considered tameh. Why is that? Well, because the bed frame. Now the bed frame itself is wood. Okay, does it have a receptacle? No, it doesn't have a receptacle. So why is a bed frame tameh? Because it's susceptible to midras tumah. If a zav sits on a bed, or it's meant to take weight. So anything, even a chair or a bench or a bed, all of those things they're wooden, and they have no receptacle, but they're nonetheless susceptible to tumah because they're made for people to sit or stand on. And therefore, once they're susceptible to midras tumah, they're automatically susceptible to any other kind of tumah. Okay, so because it's susceptible to midras tumah, therefore we're now talking about kli 8, which is kli 8 tameh, and the hooks that serve it are part of that kli, and therefore those hooks themselves also are tameh. Mishal nakli tin tahora, but if we've got a bed that's got these sort of it actually isn't a 4-poster bed, but imagine you've got the poles sticking up from the middle of the head and from the middle of the foot with a cross beam, and you drape a curtain over it, perhaps to keep the mosquitoes out or something. Okay, so that's called the naklitin, and that goes higher than the bed, and the pole itself is not an actual part of the bed. It's detachable, and you don't put weight on it. So the hooks that are on that are tahor because they serve this pole, which itself is immune to tumah. Okay, Vishal shida, the hook of a chest is tameh. Now, why is a chest? Because so let's just look at that commentary over here on the bottom of 539. Our Mishna refers to a metal hook attached to a small wooden chest. The hook is used to hang the chest on the wall. So now the wooden chest is susceptible to tumah since it has a receptacle. So therefore, the hook attached to the chest is also susceptible. Okay, as with the hooks of the dargesh, however, the metal hooks are governed by the laws that apply to wooden utensils and not those of metal utensils. Okay. Vishal akon. Now the akon is the fish trap. Yeah. Okay. So our translation of akon as a fish trap follows Rav and Rambam, who interpret the term as referring to a wooden box or basket that is used to catch fish. Okay, the interior of the box is lined with metal hooks to catch the fish that swim into it. Alternatively, there's a metal hook on the outside of the box to which a rope would be attached and the box lowered into the sea. So the hooks on this fish trap are not susceptible to tumah because the fish trap itself is not. As such, its attachments which acquire the same status as it has are not susceptible either. Okay, and the hook of a table shall shulchan tmea. Why is a table susceptible? Because again, a table is just flat wooden ware. So why should that be susceptible to tumah? Because Chazal actually made a gezerah on tables, that if you use it as a work surface and you're preparing things on it, it looks so much like a kli, and you don't want to make any mistakes. And let's say it's got a slight lip on it, and that it even has a slight bit of receptacle on it, then it would be midoraisa, it would be tameh. So they said that all tables are considered susceptible to tumah if they're work surfaces. Okay, so that's tameh. So any hook that's on the table, the hook of a table is when it's hung by the string when not in use. The tables in Talmudic times were small and tray-like, and they would, as a rule, be removed after the meal. Anything else? Yeah.
These are the tables that they wouldn't really sit at a table. They would sit like recline on a couch or something like that.
Yeah, way? Possibly that's the idea. Vishal menorah eitz tahor, but the hook of a wooden candelabra is tahor. Okay, a wooden candelabra again is not a receptacle, and therefore it and its hooks are tahor. Ze'aklal, your general rule: kol hamechuber latame tame. Any hook that is attached to something that is itself susceptible to tumah is susceptible to tumah. Mechuber latahor tahor, and vice versa. And any of these hooks that are detached, each one on its own, is tahor. Okay, a hook by itself just is not by itself a kli. It's only useful when it's attached to the object, and it's and therefore it takes on the status of whatever it's attached to. Okay, whew. These are long and difficult mishnayos. Mishnah Gimel, Kisoi Teni Shel Mateches. Okay, you've got a basket, and it's got a metal cover. So in general, the covers of utensils are tahor, but we have if it's Shel Balei Batim, if it's a normal householder's cover of a basket, then that is it's machlokes Rabban Gamliel Matame v'Chachamim Matarin. So Rabban Gamliel says that because people sometimes do turn it over and use it as a receptacle, then it is susceptible to tumah. Chachamim say that's not its normal use. If you have one or two people who decide that they're going to use it as a kli, that doesn't determine what most people do. But Shel Rofim, everyone agrees that when doctors are going around carrying their medicines, they take it out and turn it over and put their stuff on it as a work surface, and therefore it is susceptible to tumah. Adeles sheba migdal shel bale batim. So a migdal is a cabinet. It's also normally a tower, but in the Mishnah we talk about a migdal as a tall cabinet. So a door that's attached that is fixed to the cabinet of a normal household is tahor because it's just a stam door. Rishel rofim tameya. But again, since we've been talking about doctors, the doors of the doctor's cabinet have got place in it for them to put their medicines, and therefore those are susceptible to tumah. Okay, another hayituchin tameim. So regular metal tongs are tameh. Okay, that really is an obvious situation because they are. Because it's a metal kli and it's a kli, everyone knows what yituchin are, and the Mishnah didn't really need to mention it. But it's mentioned here in contrast to prachin. To the prachin, as you see the diagram over here, it's kind of a rotisserie kind of thing that's stuck through the wall of the oven, and is used to hold things inside the oven. Okay, so it's got a similar usage to tongs, which is why we're contrasting with the tongs. And since it is built to be fixed into the oven, and the oven is fixed into the ground, it is tahor. because it's fixed to the ground. Now you may ask, but the oven itself is fixed to the ground. How can, and an oven is tameh, right? But that's because there's a specific gezeres hakasov. It's an exception that is built into the Torah, that ovens are basically the only things that are fixed into the ground and yet are susceptible to tumah, because there's a pasuk that talks about ovens becoming tameh. Anything else that's fixed into the ground is tahor. And that includes our metal kli over here, which is not an oven, and therefore, being fixed to the ground, it is not susceptible to tumah.
They are calling it on the diagram. They call it an oven, and the rakim are going into the oven.
That's right. That's right. So it's fixed into the oven, which is in turn fixed into the ground. And even though the oven itself is susceptible to tumah because of the gezeres hakasov, the gezeres hakasov does not extend to the prachin.
But the airspace is there. If the oven becomes
That's right. It doesn't matter. Airspace, no airspace. If something is not susceptible to tumah, it's not. It's immune.
Right.
It can't become tameh. Okay. Akrav beis habad. So once again, we saw an akrav before as part of a horse's bridle, and here's another kind of akrav, which is part of an olive press. It's the piece of metal that actually does the work of pressing the olive. That's the hard bit that presses the olives, and that is tameh. So now you'd think, but this is fixed into the ground. Okay, so let's take a look at the commentary on this one over here. Our Mishnah refers to a bent piece of metal attached to the wooden olive press. This hook is attached to a small beam of the olive press and is used to crush the olives. Okay. Now, based on the rule at the end of the previous Mishnah that a metal object attached to a utensil that is not susceptible to tumah is similarly not susceptible, it would seem that the akrav should be immune to tumah, for it is attached to a wooden arm, which, lacking a receptacle, is impervious to tumah under the laws governing wooden utensils. Nevertheless, our Mishnah rules that the akrav is susceptible to tumah. This is because the primary function of this instrument, crushing the olives, is performed by the metal akrav, not by the wooden arm. So similar to the previous Mishnah's case of a Comer's scale, it's the metal component, not the wooden component, that defines the status of the instrument as a whole. And the entire instrument is considered a metal utensil. Therefore, not only the akrav, but even the wooden arm to which it's attached are susceptible to tumah. Okay, that's the akrav beis habad. And finally, the unkeli shebekasalim, and a hook that's in a wall is tahor. Okay, metal hooks set in the walls of houses to hang utensils from. They're not susceptible to tumah because they're attached to the house. Okay, and since it's attached to the ground, it's impervious to tumah. It's strange that Rosh finds it strange that our Mishnah states such an obvious law. He therefore suggests that our Mishnah is referring to hooks that can be and occasionally are removed from the walls and then reinserted. And so the chiddush is that the hooks are immune to tumah even when they're not attached to the walls. Okay, let's leave it at that.
Okay, all right. I just had to check with my wife what's happening with this time thing that I have.
Yeah.